That's why we're here. So this event, this drop-in Ask a Mentor event, we do them once a month. They're part of the Ready Vet Go community. So presumably you are part of the community. I don't know what your role is in the veterinary profession, but we have lots of veterinary students, new grads, a lot of vet techs, practice managers. So wherever you're joining us from in the veterinary profession, we're very much happy to have you. We host these Ask a Mentor events to talk about anything around medicine, vet school, technician life, anything after vet school, well-being. So anything is really on the table. And if you have questions for us about Ready Vet Go, or you don't actually know how you came to be here, we're happy to talk to you about that as well. So feel free to drop things into the chat. And feel free to take yourself off mute or come on video to ask Dr. Radillo any question. I'll just start by telling you that I'm Dr. Danny Rabwin. I'm the founder of Ready Vet Go. And we're really glad to have you here. I did see your message into the chat. Thank you so much. You're welcome to just hang out, which is great. And so we have a mentorship program for new and early career veterinarians, and we also do a lot of continuing education and just like service events for the veterinary profession. And so this is one of them. And so I'm going to actually, Dr. Radillo, ask you to just introduce yourself. And then I think to get the conversation going, I'll probably just ask you, Dr. Radillo, just questions about how you came to be here. But if you want to take a minute or so and just introduce yourself and let us know how you came to be here, that would be great.
Hi, Peggy. Great to meet you and great to have you all the way from Taiwan. Thank you for spending some time with us. So I'm Dr. Dio. I am, now it's last year. I am a small animal veterinarian and I graduated from Davis in 2012. It seems like so long ago and it wasn't. But definitely been having a lot of fun in regards to regular hospital life, because I got to do in clinic, I got to do almost every single role you could do in a hospital, including hospital management. And it was actually fun because in my career, I actually was able to go into higher level management to I worked for a corporation, so I did the field management. So I got to run 17 hospitals at the same time. So that was actually a lot of fun because I was looking at the business side versus just the medical side. And that was so much fun actually because I got to mix what I knew in medicine to translate the business side to the teams and make it fun. So that was a lot of fun in that piece. With Ready Vet Go, I started helping out last year, you for last, right? And I currently am the student liaison coordinator. So for a lot of the vet students, I'm one of their main connections, especially the ones that we have representing us at the schools. So it's a lot of fun being able to help the current students there. One of my passions is helping young vets feel comfortable in their everyday life, being able to maneuver through vet med, especially connecting what you learned at school versus what in real life is, because real life is a whole different ball game. So it's fun having learning that and also talking your way through cases as well, because that's a whole different aspect that some vet schools do have some education for and some do not. Like Davis does have a communication lab, or a communication course that they teach their students. I'm actually a communication mentor and I still help out with them and help guide them and teach them in regards to communications with your clients. So it's a lot of fun to be able to help current students and then new grads, both in Ready Vet Go and then also throughout the community. So it's a big piece, a big passion of mine to help younger vets feel comfortable, make sure they feel like they're not alone, because both myself and Dr. Danny have been in those positions where we were just thrown into the deep end and had to figure our way out. So definitely it is something that I love being able to help doctors with so that they don't feel that way and they know that they have someone there. So lots of little aspects to it. So feel free. I know you're just listening in. But we can definitely assist in a lot of areas. If you'd like to ask questions, feel free to put it in the chat as well. And if you hear my dog playing in the background, he's very sad because my cat decided that he doesn't want to play with him anymore. So he's really sad now. He's getting all his toys. So if you hear his toys squeaking, it's because he's finally trying to entertain himself since my cat won't interact with him anymore. It was actually funny. I got video of him because he's a 90-pound pit bull mix, roughly. And my cat, so he's only 3 years old, and my cat is 16 years old. And at first, I was like, this is interesting. I'm watching my cat because this cat typically bullies dogs, but my dog wasn't scared of him. He thought it was just play time. And so I actually have videos of, you know how cats get on their back legs and they'll try to swat at it? My dog took that too. He's like, oh, this is how you play with the cat. And he's straight up swatting at him like a cat, and just like the paw just like patted the cat. And of course he falls over and then gets mad and whatnot. At first I thought they were playing, but then after I realized that my cat didn't like it, and yeah, so it's just funny. Now my dog's like, I'm just sticking near you. Okay. Playing with all your toys. Okay. So
Cute. Um, Dr. Jovanna, when you were talking about your background and how you came to be doing what you are doing, a couple things jumped out at me. One was like around the business side of medicine, and the other was around the communication side of medicine. And I just, when I hear from veterinarians how they end up in veterinary medicine, it's usually around love of animals, wanting to connect with animals. Where along your veterinary journey did this interest in the business part come, and the communication part? And like, was that part of what drew you to vet med, or did you find that along the way?
I think that's a great question. The funny part was that I didn't want to do business as well. I was the same way when I got out of school. All I wanted to do was help pets. I was lucky enough to have a mentor who was very business driven. I think, if I remember correctly, he already had his own business, house call business, by the time I was doing my mentorship with him. But he also worked in the corporation with me. He was running hospitals, and I'm actually really thankful for him, because he made me realize how important it was for our veterinarians to also be business savvy to an extent. And I will say that in the beginning, my understanding of that is definitely different than the way it is now, but not too far off. In the beginning, I wasn't very interested, and I was just like, all right, if you say so, I'll do it. And it was more of first teaching me how to be productive in the hospital. That was the first step. And then it was interesting because the more and more I started figuring out how to be productive and how to basically go through the understanding, because a lot of people will just understand that what you charge a client is, well, we kind of look at it as APC. So it's average patient charge. That's what it actually stands for. But I actually started looking at it a different way, thanks to my mentor, as average patient care. So how well of a well-rounded care are you providing for this pet? And that actually ended up becoming my philosophy for teaching the teams, is that if I do my job in educating pet parents, and I tell them what I think is best and put together my knowledge that I know in medicine and bridge those two together, then I knew that I was going to be able to keep a pet healthy, like healthier than its pet parent would have done if they weren't educated on that information. And through that process, I even started figuring out more that I think the hardest part too in the beginning was the fact that as a doctor, your gut always makes you feel bad for charging people, or you fall into the whole, if a pet parent doesn't have money for something, you fall into that, that spiral of how am I going to help this pet, and how am I going to able to do my job but help this pet parent given the situation they're in. And that's actually where the communication started going in even more, because I knew I didn't want to sound like a car salesman. That was one of the biggest um pieces of feedback that I always heard from my mentor, because my team used to say, oh, well, he's just a car salesman, he's just adding on. And I was like, okay, that means my team doesn't understand the value behind the medications or the treatment that we're doing. So now how do I translate that to my team and make it digestible? Because I know that that's going to translate to what my pet parents need. Ultimately, it ended up trickling down as I ended up seeing it as a game. Like, how can I get a process going? How can I do it in the smoothest way to have everyone, the team, our pet parents and everything. Now, I will say I was different in my projection into leadership because I was already running hospitals at 3 months out of school, or once I started, which is not a good idea in any case, but I was more prepared compared to other people that would be in that, just because I had been in the corporation for a while. I had been a part of good teams. I saw all that. So the good news is I was able to put all of that together, all the best teams, best, things that I saw that worked well and made a team, a stellar team, but also translate that to our clients and be able to provide care. So I know it's like a big roundabout piece, but it actually ends up going back into actually the quality of medicine I was being able to provide for my pet parents. Also making sure that my team understood and was behind me and understood why we would want to treat in a specific way versus what they've seen before, and then also understand, respect the doctors, respect other doctors. But then that also became my job. My job had to be educate the doctors to understand how do we do that, provide that best care. And it just ended up becoming like step by step by step. I seriously still can't believe that I've been helping out the communication lab for 12 years now. It's like it flowed by, and yeah, it's like I knew innately I had a lot of those pieces, but honestly, this whole trajectory of the experiences that I've had, gotten to do, and I've been lucky to live through in life, has gotten me to put both the business, the communication, as well as team culture, is like the forefront of like what we work with everyone in itself. I know that was like super roundabout, but they all connect in one piece that makes it this big understanding that the more and more I can have my pet parents understand it and lead with that, the better that I would be able to provide medicine, and I knew the money would come. But it was always the trick of showing the teams how to do that and replicate what I did, but in a bigger scale. Oh, long story. I mean, long answer, but all intertwined, I promise.
Yeah, it's a great answer. And I do think it's all really connected. And, I was wondering if you could kind of connect also the pieces around your personal background. Like you talk about how you're bilingual and you're first generation, and you bring a really different perspective to veterinary medicine, that's pretty unique. And I imagine that might play in some way to the culturally and just like having a different like perspective than your teammates or your clients, and how that has helped with the communication piece, um or how that has influenced the way you practice medicine in general.
I think it's a good area to see because I Peggy is, as you've seen, for culture wise, that's a big piece that pet parents always want to be listened to and always want to be heard. And having lived through certain situations definitely helps prepare you for that and makes you be more empathetic or understand where a pet parent is, whether they feel like they're going to be judged, where they feel like maybe culturally they may not have been able, like it's not a norm to take a pet to the vet to be taken care of. So there's a lot of little pieces that I feel like me growing up and having lived through that, especially for me, I was inner city, or I grew up in inner city Los Angeles. My parents house is still in inner city Los Angeles. I still help out at my elementary school, and all of those experiences, being able to see that, being able to see poverty or families struggling just to put food on the table, but also want to make sure that their beloved pet is taken care of and receives the care, helps. I don't want to say it just it doesn't, it's not like, how do I best say this, it colors your way of medicine to a certain extent, in that I think it helps in the communications part of how to bridge the potential lack of understanding, from the pet parents on that side. Because a lot of people, like I grew up, I don't remember taking our pets to the vet. And I remember my own, my mom's boxer pit bull mix had, pretty sure it was glaucoma. I mean, I was bulging. It was so bad. And I remember going like, Mom, Mom, we need to take him to the vet. My mom, because it was a recession, we didn't have money, and so my mom thought the first thing in her head was, I'm gonna get judged. I'm gonna get judged. Why we're doing it. And luckily, we did get our baby to the vet, and there wasn't enucleation. Get ready for this one, Danny. It was $400 if I remember correctly. Yeah, I was like, for an enucleation, which when I grew up and I was a vet, I mean, minimum was $2,000 when I would do that, right? But this again, inner city, so it was that bridge. What do we do? I wonder what corners were cut during that surgery, which scares me. But again, it gives you this thought process of like, you know what, these people are coming to you, like any culture. Is coming to you worried that they're going to be judged. So you learn very, very quickly to take away those um, the rose-colored glasses that you actually, would judge a pet parent because you're thinking about the pet, right? Why is he suffering? Why is he this? But it makes you understand and think in your head, like, you know what? Maybe this family is going through something and they can't, or maybe they don't understand. Maybe they don't see it. And while for us, there may be certain things that are common sense, for them, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't understood. And so it just gives you a better understanding as to what a family or a person is going through so that when you show up for them, I feel like it gives you different empathetic statements for sure. But also I think it also gives you more of a leeway, not to automatically think, oh, well, this person needs financial aid resources, but say, like, when I share financial aid resources now with pet parents, I'm like, you know what? I understand this is a surprise. You didn't know it was going to happen. Let me give you some resources just so that you're prepared. I want to make sure you have all the resources that are there so that you don't feel worried that you cannot provide the care you have it. So it comes from like that idea. And so it kind of takes away that sense of, kind of like, yeah, judgment that the pet parents can feels like they're going to have, but they understand that they have a safe space to talk, or actually ask more questions, or maybe actually see someone. I mean, yes, I can also say, like, having someone that looks like you and understand, like, speaks your language, yes, 100% that adds it. But I feel like it's something that every one of us can do, of understanding that, a person is a human. We don't know their backstory. You just make sure to treat everyone with kindness. And yeah, I think that adds in all the communication little pieces. It's just more of taking away or thinking of the humanity piece first, and then kind of seeing, how do I bridge what this parent is trying to do, and they're trying to take care of their child, which pet child, but they're trying to take care of their pet as best as possible. How do they do that, and how do I help them the best? And the best way is show up authentically like yourself, and see, bridge that medicine that, to be the best doctor you can show up for that pet. And I know, like, for me, that's been why people will, ask for more help, or they'll come to me with more questions, just because they know that, at least with me, they have a safe space, and I'll be more than glad to answer their questions, even as silly as they may seem. But it's just more of, they have a safe space. And yeah, yeah, that's the biggest piece. I think it's just bridging the two together. And I'm all over the place, but this is like one of my favorite topics in itself, because there's so many aspects, so many colors to it. But honestly, it goes down to the humanity of it, and what can we do to help this pet parent best help their baby.
I think it's really interesting, like how it just seems to always circle back to humanity, and this empathy piece is kind of what I was hearing. And the other thing I was hearing in your answer is that it doesn't sound like we have to walk in somebody's shoes in order to be empathetic and non-judgmental. You use your lens in order to be empathetic and non-judgmental with the pet parents that you come into contact with. And then I do the same thing, and we come from different backgrounds and have
Mhm.
different biases and different lenses. And I think that's really helpful for people as they're moving into this veterinary profession, especially if you're working with different cultures or different generations. I know for me, with my mentorship program and working with new veterinarians, fortunately, the most recent information from the AVMA is that 25% of veterinary students currently are from minority or underrepresented backgrounds, which is awesome. And it also means that as a middle-aged white lady mentor, I'm not going to look the same or have lived the same experiences as some of my mentees, and that's okay,
Hmm?
because empathy really transcends a lot of that. And so really like tapping into our own unique experiences and then expanding it out to the broader community that we're working with, is something that we can really do. And I love hearing you talk about it.
I was gonna say,
Because
I will say it was funny because I it actually changed in my mind when I was doing my master's. So I have my master's in public policy and administration. I know, total left field, right? I did it because when I was applying to vet school, I had an idea that I wanted to have a nonprofit and help low income to very low income communities with services more than just spays and neuters that the city could provide and vaccines, because I saw there was a need and I was like, how do I do that? And I remember, so my thought was when I did my mock interview for Davis, is what I shared, because I didn't, at that point, I didn't know better. I didn't have any mentors. I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And I remember I shared that, but I shared that my goal was that I was going to come out of vet school, be a doctor in Beverly Hills, have my own hospital. The money I get from there, I was going to use to run a clinic in downtown LA and help the homeless and help low. I was totally thinking that, and they just told me. So one I thought was a harsh comment. The second one was actually productive, but the first interviewer was like, you have a Pollyanna worldview and you're not going to make it in vet med. Like that was straight out. So I'm sitting there like, stay smiling, right? Like, okay. The second person was very helpful. And I said, you know what, you want to do that? Then I recommend that you look into the public policy and administration program here at Sac State. That he was doing that program himself at that moment, and that way I can learn how to run a nonprofit. And I was like, perfect, I will do that before vet school. And I did, and I was actually opened my eye a lot, because I also technically could now, with my degree, I could be a veterinary lobbyist, and it gives it colors a different lens as well for lawmakers, because I'm a veterinarian that actually lived through it, right? But when I was going through it, I had a lot of people going in the Capitol, and then of course so I was around a lot of people working with senators and assembly people. Well, when I had to do my thesis, then I had to figure out, what am I going to do, right? And I still looked that up. I was trying to figure out policies through the city of Los Angeles. I did a whole I had to do my survey and I went out to do that. But when I was working on my thesis, on my title, I had put it to like Latino communities. And it was funny because my thesis mentor was Latino, and he was a professor in the program. And he was like, you need to open your eyes and see that this is not just the Latinos. The idea that there's very low and low income communities is a widespread of multiple cultures, and you have to see it. And I was like, okay. Like that was the first time I was like, oh, I didn't see it that way. And then since then, I remember once I finished my thesis and did that, like that was a big flip, that I didn't realize that all of us are affected of this. Like it doesn't matter the race. I mean, yes, it's easier because I would say like, because I'm Mexican American, so I speak Spanish. I know the culture. I know that I know many of the Latino cultures, and I understand certain cultural acceptances that are there, but it doesn't mean that my pet parents, I used to have these favorite, like I remember these Japanese clients, I could not speak English, but they'd only come to me because I had the patience to talk to them for my doctors. And like, it was like, I could help them, or I could help, my other client that really, they were Vietnamese and they really wanted to help their Maltese with, the worst allergies. And they would come to me because I would sit there and break it down, but it was just like the patience. And it ended up coming, like adding in to being like, okay, like there may be a language barrier, but we'll figure this out. Like, let's go, as long as you have the patience to do that. So I will say I'm really thankful for my master's program, because I think that was the flip that made me see it as a broad spectrum versus I'm just looking at the Latino community, only them, only them, only them. So it's nice. I mean, yes, now it's nice that we have blend and we have other possibilities, and the few other ones that are looking into that, which is great. When I, came out, we didn't have this. So it's good that like we're all coming together with this joint knowledge. And that way our communication as doctors, our medicine as doctors is even better because people actually allow us to do what we need to do because they understand us and they know that there's not as much judgment. So that's, I mean, a good piece to it. I want to see how it happens after our, well, we're already in the continued surge of COVID puppies and kitties and new first time pet parents. So it'll be fun to see how they grow up and how we see the changes over the next few years of how it continues. So yeah, lots of pieces for it. So I am super thankful for my master's program actually before vet school to help me see that too.
As I'm listening to you tell this story, I'm just kind of reflecting on like the important people along the way who have influenced where you are now. And those two interviewers, one that said you had a Pollyanna worldview, it just is so infuriating to me. Like how we take the idealism like that from a young person and squash it is just, it's just so, makes me so
Yeah.
angry. And and then to think there was somebody else on that interview panel who shifted it and made you go, oh, okay, maybe I will go apply for this master's. And then you had that master's thesis advisor who, like what you said, basically
Mhm.
gave me chills. Like, you don't need to have such a narrow perspective. This is stuff that affects everybody, lots of different communities. And, those mentors that you had kind of along the way who influenced the direction that you took. I just love it so much.
And the
And I
crazy part
love
is how
also,
we're doing it for the future generations. That's the most amazing part. So I love everything you're doing with the program because to think like everyone else that's gonna come back and like reflect on the early years and go like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad I had that. Or I'm glad someone told me like look into your 401k right now instead of look at it like 10 years later like we
yeah.
did. It's just such a difference to be able to have that mentorship there. And yeah, you never know when those personalities, so when that person someone's going to come along and just kind of nudge you. Yeah, it's definitely, it's amazing to see how our journeys shape us and like continue to shape us as we continue growing. So it's a good process. Like even the communication, I keep joking with Davis that I was like, why don't we do a communication lab here in San Diego at the local campus and I could run it, and they just laugh because it's a lot of work. Like they don't laugh because they doubt me. They're like, yeah, you could run it, but I'm just telling you right now, like the amount of to find mentors to do. I'm like, no, I'm just saying that I know that's a lot of work. I'm just saying if you want to, possibilities. I'm just saying to expand it, but it's just where like I would have never thought, like even if I think of my journey where I'm at right now, I would have never thought I was going to do telemedicine. Like who would have thought like when we were in school that you could do telemedicine? Because everyone's like, you're doing medicine over the camera. What? It's just, yeah, I'm just floored. I still keep looking back. I'm like, wow, like I'm actually doing this and it's comfortable. Now I will say like for younger vets that want to do that, I don't want to discourage you to not do it in itself, or like any time in your career. I will say as an early vet, it's probably not a good idea to do telemedicine because with the telemedicine world, you have to be very seasoned. You have to know very quickly of what your diagnosis is, what your treatment plan is, what you're going to do, or how you're going to recommend something to a pet parent. And it's in a very limited time constraint. So if anyone is interested in doing it, I would say definitely get your years under your belt in person, in the hospital, so until you feel comfortable. And then once you feel comfortable, if it is something you want to do, definitely do it. It's a lot of fun. You do get bored of being at home sometimes, but the nice part is there are some ways that you could get out and meet other dogs and pet them and pet puppies and kitties and all that. But yeah, it's interesting to see even how careers change. And I keep thinking that I am going to eventually go back to do veterinary lobby, but we'll see. We'll see when that happens.
That's one thing that's so amazing about our degree and why I love having these conversations with veterinarians, because people are doing so many amazing things. There's so many things we can do with this degree. You're doing telemedicine, you've got your master's, you can do lobbying, you can be in the clinic, you can be a mentor, you can do communication. We've got other mentors who are in finance and helping
Mhm.
people with student loans and saving for retirement. And I certainly never expected that I would have a remote mentorship business, mentoring new veterinarians while also still working in the clinic. This is a really amazing profession. And I really love being able to highlight all of the different places that you can go with this degree. So I love that you brought up the telemedicine piece as well.
I know Peggy, I know you're just listening and whatnot. So hopefully you have some fun adventures in Taiwan and being able to see, just being able to be there for your community and know how important you are and how valued you are in the community. Because I know some pet parents may not share that. I know some will, and some will definitely share their love for you. But just remember, you're not alone with it. You could always reach out to us if you want to know different ways of different career paths. I mean, seriously, like this opportunities are endless. Like there's so many possibilities to do, and especially since we know that the need to see pets is phenomenal. I really want to find that statistic. After COVID, they said like it was. I thought it was 4,000 pets per doctor that needs to be seen per day to meet the need, which there's no way. There's no way. I need to find the exact number of it because either way, it was phenomenal. But to think like we have to get better in vet med of being able to help them in a appropriate, an appropriate way, to be able to, yeah, give them the care as we wait for more veterinarians to come out and be able to treat them. So there's just so many pieces to it. If you're thinking of anything new or new adventures in vet med, there's so many mentors. Like I was thinking of Dr. Pat, about how she's doing life coaching, and she was a Pat is a German, right? Yeah, she's a dermatology specialist, which is awesome. Yeah, there's just so many possibilities, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, yes, there's a lot of downs, but there's a lot of parts that we definitely can explore and enjoy in our career.
Yeah, and I love that you're just like, building up our colleagues, and letting other veterinarians and other veterinary professionals know how needed you are, how thrilled we are to have you as part of this community. We have this live event, but these chats always live on demand in our
Mhm,
community, and a lot of people watch them.
mhm.
And so
It's
you
good.
never know who's going to be watching this and need to hear a little pick me up. And so I think it's great that you threw that in there. One thing that we do
Yeah,
get asked a lot, I'm gonna like change the
yeah.
trajectory of the conversation. When we have new veterinarians on, one of the things that new grads always love to hear about, and I know there's going to be new grads watching this on demand, so I'll ask on their behalf. Um, Everybody worries about making mistakes. And we definitely make mistakes. I was in the clinic today. I probably made some kind of mistake. It never goes away. There's something about hearing from experienced veterinarians about the mistakes they made early in their career that is very comforting to newer veterinarians. Do you have a story that you think of about something that happened in your first few years in practice that was like a mistake that you overcame, either something that you screwed up or something medical, something big or small? And I didn't warn you about this question in advance, so
Oh,
I'm putting you
okay.
on the spot. But this is something that I think a surprising number of early career veterinarians really like to hear about these.
I have a good one that also involves my team, which I love doing this, because back to your point that everything falls on us, in itself, is that I remember when I was, I think, a year into practicing, I was already running the West LA clinic, and I remember I had these really two good clients, or this good client with two patients, right? I knew their colors. They only saw me. I was their primary care provider. One of the dogs was black and white, and the other one was a beigeish tan. And I knew them just by looking at them. I knew their name, I knew whatnot. Well, unfortunately, my team scheduled their dental on a day I was not there. And this is where everything went downhill. Okay, and I share this because as a leader, I had to walk through it because ultimately everything fell on me. So my teams not only mixed up the name badges on the pets. They put the wrong badge on the wrong pet. They didn't double check the file as to see what color they were in. That's important because if I remember correctly, it was the black and white one that was being put under, and the beige one had just had a dental with me. And this time they were supposed to be flipped, right? One just came for their comp and one came for their dental. But they basically put the same one that went under for a dental not too long ago under anesthesia, and the other one didn't get it. But so day goes on, there was another doctor. The doctor did not check. Again, I was a relief doctor, so they wouldn't have known that piece. And then my team, did the dental. The pet went home. I come back to the hospital the next day, and I find out that this had happened, and the client was, she was mad. She was really mad, worried because something could have happened to her pet. So here I am, new doctor, also new leader, not even knowing how to approach this because I wasn't there, but I knew the responsibility fell on me because I not only hold the premise permit, it was my team, it was my client, and they should have, like, my team should have known to double check this piece, right? And this is a big learning experience because not only did this challenge my communication with the client, it also took my team, because my team feels horrendous by this time for the ones that made the mistake. And how do I lead them? Because now they had to do this. And it was pieces. So with the client, that was one of the most horrendous conversations. I mean, my gut, it wasn't like, it was, the client was super nice. They were mad, they were frustrated, of course, and they shared that with me. And while in vet med, you never want to say I'm sorry. I had no other thing than say that I'm sorry that my team missed this. Like and that I didn't, double check, face, like there was no other way of going around it. I had to apologize. And that, I mean, my just got and the good news is the only thing you can do is show the pet parent where this was safe. At least we knew everything went well. Thank goodness it had been 6 months. So it wasn't like back to back or anything like that. But still, I had to carefully maneuver, walking through the benefits, at least what happened, what we were going to do to rectify it, of which the other baby needed the dental cleaning financially. I had to take the hit on it because, which made sense. There was no way around that in itself because the baby needed a dental cleaning and that's what they had come for, that's what we had promised. And I made sure that time that pet was scheduled with me. The client, of course, had lost trust in the whole team, so they only wanted the pet seen with myself and my lead, which is fine. Like, we made sure that they were always scheduled. Then my team, how do I bring up the morale and how do I get them to do this? Now my team, they were already devastated and they were already so worried and they were already beating themselves up. So I didn't have to do much because they were beating themselves up. So the biggest piece I had to do for them, I mean, again, it was still my mistake overall, because for me as a leader, one of the thought processes I follow is, if you ever want to read a good book, is Jacko Willis, Extreme Leadership. And that one, it talks about like the Navy and how if mistakes happen, or the military, and if the mistakes happen, ultimately the blame goes on the leader, because the leader either didn't communicate with their team, didn't teach them something, or didn't do it. So I knew I was already feeling bad. I'm like, how do I get my team uplifted and understand that it's my fault, but it's also theirs. So how do we fix this? I actually let them brainstorm. They brainstormed their own way of how they were going to like make sure this didn't happen to any other pet. We figured out, where everyone, had the good intention and how mistakes happen and how we're human and how we're going to fix it. So my team actually ended up figuring out a way that they wanted to make sure to like check in patients, make sure double check. They figured out their own double check system, which ended up being a great thing for the team. A horrible thing to happen for our pet, but thank goodness pet was fine, did not die, and that's the most important piece of it. But in those pieces, as a young leader, that was one of the hardest things that I had to realize, that I had to say sorry to about. And it was crazy because I wasn't even in the hospital, but I had to realize that that was my team, and my team, was under my license, under the hospital and whatnot. We saved that client, which is good, but it was all little pieces of learning that, even if it's not me, I knew my team was still a reflection of me, and I needed to make sure that they felt as prepared as possible to represent like our brand and what we would do as a team and what we believed in. So it was a lot of thinking around that too.
I feel like you could do a whole webinar around that case because I mean, it just I think anybody in vet med can understand how that can happen. And yet when you hear it happen, you're like, oh no. When you said it, I was like, I felt it in my gut. Like, you know how that can happen. And the piece about being a new or early career vet and transitioning into your role as a leader, I think is sometimes something that we don't really think about. You know, we're prepared to practice medicine, but we're not always prepared for the leadership role that comes
Mhm,
along with it. And you were the final say, even though you weren't even in the clinic. That
mhm,
was your case. That was the patient that you had been working in with. You were the final say. You were the one who had to make that phone call.
mhm,
There are so many layers to that case. I feel like this is a great case study that you
mhm.
can just
I do
run
it.
with
But I love
because
it because it's not just you mistake, it's like the whole team. And thankfully, like this is one of those cases, like again, the pet was fine
the
and I
pet
knew it was a
ended up
dental,
being
but
fine.
I have another case that the pet died 2 hours later. And that was an anesthetic issue in itself. And thank goodness my team caught what they were seeing in the kennel, like that the pet was off, and we started CPR. My heart fell for this client because that case, the mom had told us that this is weird, two pets, not related, but at a different hospital, her pet had died after anesthesia. Her pet coded under anesthesia. This pet was fine. Blood work was fine. No murmurs, no abnormalities, nothing. Everything that was double checked. I knew that that anesthesia was the smallest dental cleaning, like the shortest one. That the patient under our care 2 hours later. I don't remember if we ever did a necropsy, but that was another gut wrenching call that I had to say, I'm sorry, your pet just died, and I was again one of the sweetest clients. She brought all her pets to me, and that was another horrendous call I had to make. And the crazy part is the mom actually thanked us because they knew what we did. They knew our team. They knew by that time I had already learned, right? This is another team. They knew what we stood for. They knew what we did to save that baby, and they knew that anesthesia, can happen. Like these things can happen, and she did not blame us. It was still gut wrenching because it's your patient, right? And you have to put all the paperwork. And it was such like hearing those words. But yeah, no, there could be that would be a good one to have. Like then things go wrong. What do you do? What do you? Because they're gonna happen. They are, and you have to be as ready as possible. And even the crazy part is no matter how you prepare, you're never going to be prepared, and you have to hope that like fully prepared. You will be prepared but not fully prepared, because you hope that what you say, you have all the training, and you do, like you have to stay calm. You do have all the training you need to get through that yourself. And if there's are any mistakes, okay, well then how do we learn from them? What do we do better? What do we not say the next time? And also, how do we continue that learning for our team so that it doesn't happen again in our hospital setting or outside hospital setting too, because they represent us. So lots of little pieces in itself.
Yeah, and then there's the piece also around, like, how do you handle it emotionally? Because
Hmm.
those things are hard, and veterinarians, we take these things extremely seriously, and nobody wants to lose a pet. And not only do we have to remain calm and communicate that information to the pet owner, the pet parent, but we have to go home with that
Hmm.
also.
And how do you
And
not just go into alcohol and drugs and other vices that are not healthy? Like, how do you have your healthy coping to get through that? Yeah, all those little pieces.
let's maybe end, and I'll invite whoever's in the chat, Peggy, if you have other questions, if you
Yeah.
want to drop final questions into the chat. I think a good way to maybe start wrapping up on our end would be for you to answer the question you just posed, which is how do you not go into those vices? Because these are things that we're dealing with all the time. This job is hard. There are times where it's sad. You and I both are very united around the fact that this job is fun and it's joyful, and we certainly love it, but it's not to be, in the words of that person who interviewed you, a Pollyanna. This job
Yeah.
isn't all just like sunshine and rainbows. There's hard parts too.
Mhm.
So what do you do? What are some of the tools that you use to help keep you grounded and keep doing this for the long haul?
I love this question because two things. So what I always recommend I do for myself and I also recommend all my mentees is whatever you find joy in or you found joy in vet school or when you were a kid, keep doing that. If it's coloring, then color. If it's for me, it's going outside and hiking or going to exercise. Like I want to get a new PR all the time or a personal record for weightlifting or like what I'm doing or whatnot. It's like the constant balance, and that's a way my brain release like balances. But here's the other part, which is perfect timing. Let me see. I'm gonna take my background off too because so up there is actually that frame that you notice there, and there's actually one above it is actually my teams giving me like their goodbyes when I moved hospitals or when they were wishing me luck. Like the one up there was actually the last team I was a part of in the hospitals when I went to field leadership. They have a thank you. So I have their photos and they have a little message up there that says, "We are not a team because we work together. We are a team because we respect and care for each other. Dr. Radillo, you have inspired us to be our best and thank you." And so they all gave me pictures of themselves. And then so I have that, I have to have those as like reminders when I have crappy days. This is actually a thank you card from a pet parent that I helped get resources for because of course she couldn't afford it for her pet, and I gave her like all these resources, so they gave me thank you. Like all my thank yous are up, even if it's from kids or because we help take care of their baby or whatnot. Like those are little things that I have to do for myself, and I recommend everyone. I know people that have it in a binder, so they could just go through it and look when they're having a bad day, like look at all the good they've done, and also how to celebrate that piece and celebrate themselves. So those are little pieces that I feel like keep me balanced overall. That and makes me remind myself like it's not all that bad. It's not, it's a bad thing that happened, but there's so much good that's already happened in our life that we just have to celebrate in that and then continue to see like what is the other fun part that we're going to be able to do, from that piece. Oh, you're muted. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you.
There you go.
I was saying thank you for taking off the blurring off your background and giving us a glimpse into your space because it's such a personal thing, but it's so important. Veterinarians are really good at remembering our mistakes, and we're not always as good at remembering our wins or the thank yous, and those far outnumber
Mhm.
the mistakes or the bad things. We just don't remember them as much. And I love that you literally put them up on your wall as a
Mhm.
visual reminder to you. I think that's a tip that we really ought to be sharing with the community at
Mhm.
large because I think it's really important. It's these small
Yeah.
little things that so many people do every day to boost themselves up, that I think we can share with each other. So
Mhm.
I think I'm just grateful that you shared that with us, and I love
No,
that
thank
that's
you.
your own personal practice. And I think that's kind of an
Yeah.
awesome way to end. I mean, if there's any like final thoughts or if whoever's here wants to drop anything into the chat. But like I said, this is going to go up on the Ready Vet Go community, and we have a lot of people that watch these after the fact, to just get inspiration and learn more about our profession. So I'm super grateful to you for being open and answering all of these
Yeah.
questions and sharing with us.
Thank you for the space.
Yeah, of course. And thanks to those of us who joined from Taiwan. That's awesome. I'm glad that we're having such a far reach. Um, Anybody who has questions about Ready Vet Go or the Ready Vet Go community, you can reach us through the community, which is how you got here. And my email, you can reach us at info@readyvetgo.co. I'll drop that into the chat. It's info@readyvetgo.co, not .com. So we will record this, and this will be up for viewing in the community probably in the next couple of days. So thank you so much. This was
You're
really fun.
welcome.
All right,
Thank
have a
you.
great night. Bye.
I had something to show you. Now I like totally blanked. Oh, this one. This is another good example. So I don't know if you see it. Okay, see how it's my lighting. You see how it's just like fossils and whatnot? Okay,
Yeah.
my brother gave me this and I have these little things. Okay, so when I was little, I wanted to be a paleontologist, and my brother knew that. So on my birthdays, he gave me, I think I was like 10. And he gave me this, it's like in a big block. So you're supposed to be like a paleontologist and take it off, right? And I saw the photo, I'm like, oh my gosh. My head, I was like, I have a fossil and I'm gonna take care of it. I was so worried for so many years to mess it up that it stayed there in the clay for like 30 years, something like that. Not until like last year, it was probably more than that. Not until last year, I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm gonna like figure out what it is. And you couldn't even see the photo, couldn't even do it. So here I am trying to be like in this hard clay that probably was easy to come off before, right? I get it off and I start going, and I don't know if it shows it, and you see the ridges. The ridges I noticed started coming off. And I was like, wait, this isn't a real fossil. Like it's just like an imprint. And there were real fossils, but they're like these tiny little things that are broken. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, this was like the 90s. They were not going to be selling fossils, like out. But my head when I was younger, like I was like, oh, I'm going to mess it up. That's why I don't want to do it. I don't want to, mess it up in that part. But I use that to teach myself, like, just because something appears to be a certain way, like doesn't mean it's actually going to be that way. And it may not be as bad. It may not be, as hard to do, because I think I also didn't want to mess it up. And I was so scared to not be perfect. So it's funny because that ended up being one of my reminders later in life, that I needed to be like, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you and show up and find little treasures along the way. So that was my other little thing. I just wanted to say that.
I love having that as a physical reminder of this message to yourself. And
Mhm.
that is a good message for lots of veterinarians, because plenty of us tend to be, erring a little bit more on the
Mhm.
perfectionism side of things, and have to often do things that are risky and sometimes a little bit scary, and we might mess up. And so I just love that.
And that's why I have Yoda pressing the button saying just do it right next to it. So
Amazing.
yeah, that was my little two cents with it. But thank
I
you.
love your 2 cents. I hope everybody gets lots of good tips out of this. I know I did. I mean, you and I have hung out
Yeah,
quite a bit, and I've just learned so much. So I'm so
I
grateful
love
to
it.
you, as
Oh, thank
always.
you.
And thanks to everyone for watching. And I hope you guys have a
Bye.
great night. Thank you. Bye.